It was like a mad thing, having suicidal thoughts, having mad things, hearing voices, and with all the pain and suffering that I have suffered, a happy fight is a dangerous fight.
Well, if you were to look at the pictures of Charlie Edwards on Instagram, he looked like he was on top of the world. But what you'll find, he was actually suicidal. The struggles and the difficulties, the boxing champion of the world, Charlie Edwards. Welcome everybody to the Turning Adversity into an Asset podcast. Today I got a very special guest. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to him, but today's going to be a little bit of a different podcast than your usual. This podcast is all about hearing some of the more painful and difficult times that a lot of celebrities, influencers, and pretty much everybody experience in their journey that don't get spoken about. Charlie Edwards. Charlie, give me a 5-minute factual overview of your story, and then we'll dive into the more emotional led parts, I guess I could say. But you're the best person to tell your story, so share that with me.
Okay, so I am Charlie Edwards, former WBC World Flyweight Champion. I've been boxing now. I started at the age of 11. I'm now 29, so 18 years deep into a career, full of ups and downs and everything else in between, but we'll get into that. I was a very successful amateur boxer from an early age. I won my first national title at the age of 13. Then after that, my career just took off straight away. I was boxing for England. I went and represented England in the European Schoolboy Championships, which I went on to win the gold medal in Portsmouth. And then after that, it was just like everything rolled into one. GB boxing team scouted me out, invited me up for a trial at just the age of 15. I was actually the youngest boxer to be invited up, I think ever. I don't think it's ever been done since then. Went up on the trial, performed really, really well, and they wanted me on the team. So after every 2 weeks, being at school, being at sixth form, I would get 2 days off. I'd have to go up every 2 weeks to Sheffield from Croydon, where I originally grown up from. Yeah, I would travel up there. I would train every other weekend for a long weekend with them. And I'd done that for about a year. And then at the age of 16 going on 17, I got straight put onto the podium squad, which was the Team GB Great Britain Olympic squad. So everything moved so quickly. I won loads of national titles along the way. I become a bit of like a poster boy, to be honest. Like I was always on like the posters. I looked so young, but I was chucked into the GB squad with grown men. This is up to the age of 34 at 16, 17 years of age. Then I went on to win a European bronze medal in my first international elite senior tournament, and that was just before the Olympic game qualification spots. So then I was touted to go to the Olympic Games 2012, which was my dream from such a young age, especially it being in London. And they pushed me into that, and then I was training away like a madman all week up in Sheffield. It started turning into being up there every week, Monday to Thursday, then go home the weekend. And then my dad would train me massively at the weekend. My dad was a firm believer. He's a pushy parent, albeit I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. So I've got to be grateful in a way for that. But I'd go up GB team, training with the Great British team all week. And then at the weekend, I'll come back and my dad would force me to train, even though I was tired, this, that, and the other. And to be honest, looking back now, I probably burnt myself out. And then with all the pressures of being this poster boy, being very successful, GB putting the pressure on me, the media started coming in as the Olympic qualifiers started approaching for 2012. I went to the first qualification. I got beat in my first fight on a double count back, which is where you theoretically draw, and then they have to go to the judges, and the judges has to pick who they think controlled the fight, and they gave it to an Argentinian fella who I fought, who was a lot older than me and more experienced. And then I went back to the drawing board, carried on training, still going up every week, training, going home, getting trained by my dad at the weekends. And I just couldn't say no, I just was like, I wanted it so bad, and I thought this was the way to do it. And then I went to my last Olympic qualifier, felt confident, everything was going good, my head was on it. I thought this is it, I'm going to do it now. Last chance saloon sort of thing. Went to that and I was unlucky in the draw. I got drawn against a Bulgarian who was number 1 seed at the time. So the best in the competition, as they deemed it as a ranking system. And I lost to him by 1 point. He was a 28-year-old man, and then he went on to win the whole tournament. So
Wow.
I bowed out, and it was heartbreaking at the time. That was my world and everything, like from the ages of 11, getting such early success, going to the European Championships, winning a gold medal as a schoolboy, then just non-stop going forward. I thought I was nailed on. I thought it was mine. Do you know what I mean? I worked so hard, dedicated my whole childhood, my whole teenage years. I was that kid. I got on with everyone at school, but I was that kid who would be at school but miss out on everything. Like my dad kept me very closeted away because he wanted me to succeed so badly. So I weren't going to, which looking back, I didn't miss out on much, but still it had an effect later on in my life of social skills, anxiety, stuff like that. I weren't going to all these social events, and I was just train. My whole life has been live, breathe, dream, eat, sleep, boxing. It's been very crazy. And then after that, I didn't qualify, and then I went on to turn professional, and I won loads of titles along the way.
Amazing. So I'd love to touch in on the dad stuff, because that's obviously been a huge driver of your success. Because what's interesting is you've also got a brother, Sonny Edwards, who's also a professional boxer. So your dad's obviously very good at instilling some kind of motivation. What do you think is the number one or a couple of the things that he's taught you and your brother to kind of go out there and make something of yourself? Because it's not just training on the weekends.
No.
There must be more to it than that, I should imagine.
Yeah, he installed into us from a very, very young age. When I first started boxing, when I first walked into the boxing gym, like with 6 months, I started getting a talent. I started enjoying it. My dad would take me up and just drop me off and go home. And then he said to me one day, he goes, "You want to do this properly, boy?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to be a world champion." Like when you're young and you just have these dreams, and the coach in the gym was saying, "Oh, you're going to be world champion one day." And I really, I believed it. And obviously that's why I've achieved it, But my dad sat me down and he said, at this young age, at 11, "Do you want to do this properly? If you're going to do it properly, we go all in or we don't do it at all." And at that age, I was like, yeah, let's do it. I didn't know what the journey would lead to. It's been very challenging along the way, with having a father who's been a complete sergeant major trainer. But he installed a lot of valuable lessons into me. I wouldn't be the person that I was today if it wasn't for him. And I'm so grateful for them days where I didn't want to train. I didn't want to run at 6 a.m. when it was pissing down with rain, and he would make me get out there, and then I'll get back and then go to school all day and then train at night. There were some days where I was really down and upset and crying and didn't want to do it, but he installed into me, what you get out of, what you put into life is what you get out. I still have them fundamentals now to this day. I went through a stage of falling out with him in a certain stage of my career because I wanted more of a dad than a coach, which we bumped heads with and clashed, and we went away from each other for a few years, and then we come back. But he installed a lot into me. Not everything you want to do in this life is going to be easy. And if it is easy, it's not worth having, When it's hard and you've got to dedicate yourself, sacrifice yourself consistently, no matter if you're tired one day, no matter if you wake up and you can't be arsed, or you feel like, nah, today I just want to go and have fun. If you look at the end product where you want to get, there are going to be days where you've got to push through these, I call it the devil on your shoulder that tries to steer you out of the way and take you off your purpose, what you want to achieve, and that little voice in your head that doubts you or tells you you're not good enough or something like that. You've got to battle through that, and it's a constant battle day in, day out. And I got taught that and was blessed with that from a very young age from my father. He had the biggest work ethic ever, and we would travel all round London. I'm talking from Croydon, where we was living. We changed clubs and went all round where we had to go to develop ourselves to be better fighters. We was over at East London at Repton Boxing Club, Newham, down in South London at the Lynn Boxing Club in Camberwell. And so my dad kind of where he thought we needed to be, and if the club wasn't good enough, he would take us out of there and move to the next one and keep leveling up. So he's taught me to have that kind of like, nothing's good enough. And that's why I probably have a bit of imposter syndrome in a way, because even if I'm at the top and I think I'm at the cream of the crop, I always think there's more to gain. And it's made me a bit paranoid, because even if I am successful, I still think I'm not good enough. I need more. But that's what bred my success. The work ethic, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have built the engine that I have in the pro ranks over the 12 rounds. We used to run at, like I said, 6 o'clock in the morning. I used to go to school all day, fall asleep in my lessons, and then go training at night. My dad would pick us up from school, drive us all the way over to East London from South London. That, you know how long that takes. That takes about an hour, if that, if you're doing it on after school traffic and that. And my dad, he supported our dreams, you know. He got us a boxing ring, put it in our front garden. Everyone in the area knew that we were the boxers, you know. And when I look back now as a grown adult and my mind's changed and everything, and I do believe in the secret and the law of attraction, there's no wonder why both his boys have become world champion. He used to go around the area and tell everyone, give all little pictures out of us, put us in the local newspapers, and he used to shout from the top of his lungs that both of my boys are going to be world champion. Everyone thought he was a crazy madman, which infuriatingly, yeah, he was. But to be able to prove and get the results that me and my brother have gotten through the sport of boxing, winning national titles from young ages all the way up till now, men winning world titles, is all through the way he constructed us. And yeah, he was a pushy parent, but without him we wouldn't be the people or men that we are today.
I think that pretty much perfectly encapsulates the turning adversity into an asset, because the adversity is, yeah, I've got to go and do all this training, but yeah, it's going to create me an asset in the future. And I wonder how that will create you an asset moving forward. You know, what do you see for the future of yourself, being able to use these skills that you've picked up in your boxing career to kind of develop the next couple of decades?
Well, I'm 29 now. Ideally, we don't know how long a piece of string is, but really I would want to look at to bow out of the sport about 35, 36. You can't really put a time period on it, because you don't know what's around the corner. You could get injuries. You could live a healthy lifestyle and get to that age and think, do you know what? I feel the best I've ever been. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've always been a late developer. I'm only really just growing my man strength now in the sport of boxing. So I don't know how long the piece of string is and how much I'm going to enjoy it, or what kind of next goal it is for me. But I do believe I will be in a life of boxing in some which way, whether that would be going down the manager's route. Like, I've had a lot of experience throughout these 18 years of boxing. I've been professional since I was 21, so 8 years. I've seen it all, contractual things, being managed up certain ways, the adversities I've had to come through, the mistakes I've made along the way. I've really learned on the job. So I think I will continue in the sport of boxing. I love it. It's my passion. When the days are where I don't want to fight myself anymore, or I can't fight myself anymore because of age factor, I think using my experience to go into that next realm of the boxing world, maybe motivational speaking. I've always liked to speak to people and speak from my own kind of experience, adversities and crazy journey that I've been through. I'd like to also maybe write a book, because I look back on my story when I actually sit down and dissect it all, and I just think, wow, like the journey that I've been through, the things I've had to endure and go through family life, from my mum becoming sick, from winning, losing, and everything in between, financial up, financials down, contractual crap and stuff like that. It's been a hell of a journey. So I know that when my time from boxing does come an end, I will have a lot of avenues to go down to and to explore. But at the moment, I am fully focused on my career. I'm setting myself up in little bits and bobs along the way with like property development stuff, other kind of avenues, maybe like wellness and fitness retreats over here in Portugal. When it comes to it, nice. My wife's a nutritionist. She's studying a high level of psychology as well. So like we lived a lifestyle of like health, fitness, and everything like that. So I do believe I will always be in maybe foot in the door with boxing, managing a few fighters, and doing other things to give back and make people feel good. You know, it's I'm a firm believer in passing good energy on. You know, right now I'm in a selfish part of my life where I have to solely focus on me, my training every day, my family and stuff like that. But after, when I probably get a bit older, I think that's the kind of route that I will go down.
Cool. So we spoke a lot about the adversities where you briefly touched on them, and you mentioned that you got so many that you could cover in a book. Let's touch on some of them. So tell me, what's been the lowest and the toughest point of your life or career?
The lowest and toughest point of my life is, I remember it to this day. I was in my strength and conditioning gym in Tolworth with my ex-strength conditioning coach, Cameron Goff, and I'd done my training. I stayed after and I was like helping out with him with like the boxercise classes. And I got a phone call. I went to my phone, as you do after you finish your work or whatever. I looked at it and there was like 7 missed calls from my mum's partner. And like he wouldn't ring me like that. There's a few text messages, I need you to call me now. And my back just went up. I was panicking. Rang him up and I remember he spoke to me. And the first thing he said was, Charlie, you've got to come to the hospital quick. I was like, what's going on? And he was like, your mum's got a brain tumour. Mate, it just felt like, you know, like the whole world just went round me. I just fought my first professional fight. I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks beforehand. And it was the only fight my mum had ever gone to in my whole career. I had 140 odd amateur fights. But I really begged her to come. She didn't like boxing. Wow. She didn't like seeing me get hit. She watched my first ever fight as an amateur on VHR, the videos, the old videos.
Yeah,
and she cried her eyes out. And like, I battered this kid in my first fight. I was doing all the punching. I was taking no punches. And she was crying her eyes out. And she said, I'm never watching you box ever again. So she doesn't like violence and stuff like that. Wow. But I begged her to come to my professional debut.
That's a very, very polarizing view between you and your mum and your dad's opinion. Were they together?
They were together up until the age of, I was 14. They had their own issues and things throughout the years. I won't go too much into that, but it was the same again. Another crazy adversity. I fought against Ireland when I was 14 years of age, and I had to jump up 2 weight divisions to get a fight. I got battered. My good friend Ryan Burnett, who went on to win world champions, and we also shared the gym and become gym mates as professionals together. But I got beat up by him, and I actually bit him and got disqualified, which is something a lot of people don't know. Me and him laugh about it, and that was at the age of 14 years of age. And then on the way home, I got a call from my mum, and she said, my dad called her, and she was saying, I'm leaving. And by the time I got home, my mum had gone. She had left. It weren't my fault. Wow. I took it as my fault. I had my dad in my ear probably saying it was my fault a little bit and putting the blame on everything about boxing and not being around for her and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very weird time then as well for adversity. Going home after getting beat against Ireland and hurt and felt like I was not good. I weren't in a good place, and going home and my mum had packed her bags and left, and it was just me and my dad. And it was hard. It was a very hard time. And then so from 14, my mum and dad had been split, different lives, which I look back and I stopped speaking to my mum for about a year and a half, because I thought as a kid, you don't really know what's going on. You're getting told this, that and the other. And it was a hard time. And now I look back with my mum being disabled, and I missed a year and a half of her life, you know, maybe listening to the wrong parent. But I've got to take that, and it is what it is. And got to move with it, you know. My mum and dad were kind of polar opposites to the boxing. The boxing took over my life.
Yeah, well, not kind of. They were pretty much extreme opposites by the sounds of it. But
my dad on the other end, my dad put all his energy into us boys and probably stopped caring so much for my mum like he used to. And it's adult life. I see adult life differently now. The attention weren't on her no more. The attention was just on me and my brother. We were travelling he would go to work all day, then we'd go boxing at night, and she was left on her own. So you've got to, like, now looking from a different lens, I look at it and think she weren't all right, he weren't all wrong. They were both as bad as each other in different ways, because you learn and you grow. But as a kid, it was hard. It was very hard, that kind of situation. And then with my mum becoming ill, I begged her to come to my professional debut. She agreed to it. My dad and my mum was actually there. First time it was the O2 Arena, my first fight on Sky Sports, signing with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing. So it was a big moment for me, and I had my mum and dad there, both ringside. They didn't speak. They stayed away from each other because they had a lot of toxicity between each other. Then after that win, being on top of the world, being on Sky Sports, everyone giving me the attention, every article getting put out about me and stuff. I put in a good performance and I knocked my opponent out and stopped him. To then 3 weeks later, training ready for my second fight as a professional and getting that call that my mum had got a brain tumor. I remember rushing down to the hospital, jumping in a car, just probably speeding, doing all sorts of dangerous driving, flying down the hospital, getting to the hospital, walking in and my mum just sitting there holding her head, like really painful in her head. We knew she had breast cancer and she was adamant she didn't want no treatment. And this another thing that messes with probably my head. I can't speak for my siblings. We kind of like, she didn't want no treatment because her mum had died at 57 from cancer and she had all the treatment and she see the effect it had on her. So she didn't want to treat any treatment, but we put pressure on her to get it. We really wanted her to get it. Obviously, you want your mum around for forever, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And then she agreed to it. She didn't want chemotherapy because you see how weak it made her mum. My mum was a vain woman. She didn't want to lose any of her hair. So they opted down the route of radiotherapy. This is the Royal Marsden Hospital. They opted down the route of radiotherapy. But my mum had a rare case of a cavernoma, which is like a birthmark in the back of your head, like to kind of like the brain stem. Really, looking back now, I just prayed that we got a second opinion, and got her MRI scanned and that. But as you don't understand when you're a kid and adults around you, my dad wasn't the kind of driving force involved. He was out of the picture and they didn't speak or anything like that. So if he would have been around, he probably would have made her go for a second opinion. But she didn't, went down that, and then she had the radiotherapy. And then the cavernoma, you can't hit a cavernoma with radiotherapy because it makes an actual brain tumour, So after she's had the radiotherapy treatment, she went all funny and got rushed to hospital. And that was the day that I got called saying she had a brain tumour. But later on, we found out, doing research, hitting radiotherapy on a cavernoma makes it explode. Theoretically, the treatment, it made her explode. Then it was battling to get her to St George's Hospital from in Sutton, St Helier, the cancer hospital over there. And then she was waiting around with this kind of bleed in her brain for ages. And we had to keep kicking off, being up the hospital back and forth, trying to get things done. They said it was a build-up of blood on the brain and they had to go in and take it off. When they come and took the brain and they had to put a shunt in, so if it did build up again, they could drain it easier. And then she had major strokes through it. When she come back up, she was in an induced coma. But before she went down, when she could still speak in that, I remember being up the hospital and she saying to me, we all went in separately to have a chat with our mum, obviously one-to-one, and she pulled me in close and she goes, boy, I said, just don't give up on your dreams. And I was a bit knocked back by it because I didn't know what was going on. I felt disattached from my body, emotions, feelings. I was just like on survival mode. And I just promised, I went, Mum, don't worry, I never give up on it, Jim. She goes, put all your energy and everything into this. I'll be all right through this, like going down to a major operation. And I said, Mum, I promise you I'll win you a world title. And then she went down, and when she come back up, she weren't the same. And this was 2.5, 3 weeks before my second professional fight.
In what way was she not the same?
She was in an induced coma. We were waiting for her to wake up. She was disabled. She couldn't speak. She needed like steroids and stuff, so she ballooned out and stuff. So it's over time. We was like going up and back and forth to the hospital. My dad made me. He had power over me. Like I was only like 21, 22, but because I was a protected child from the real world, because as we well know, the real world's a dangerous world. If you get caught up in madness and stuff, he wanted to keep us like family unit and training and stuff. So we were quite protected. So I didn't really know like the actual world. All I knew is boxing, the gym, home, family life. So I must have been about 21. So he still had the power over me, and he was like, "You're going gym," and like kind of forced me into it. I didn't want to, but looking back now, I'm glad he did, because it could have gone one or two ways for me. I could have really lost my head, gone down the alcoholic route, taken drugs to escapism and everything like that, and do mad stuff to just like disattach my body and feelings, emotions, because I couldn't feel nothing. I was just blank.
That's the route I took, and it wasn't the right path. So you did the right thing there, mate.
But it weren't really my decision. So I've got to thank and be grateful for my dad, because he forced it upon me. I remember being up the hospital one stage, speaking to my mum, and we was up there all the time. Like, it was weird. We wouldn't go home and rest. Me, my brother Sonny, and Nicola, we'd be back and forth to the hospital, just sitting there, just like waiting. Looking back, was that the right thing to do? Maybe not, but we just couldn't leave her side. Only time we left her side was to go to the gym. I remember going to the gym and training, and I had my fight in like 3 or 4 weeks lined up, scheduled, already accepted it. But it hadn't been announced publicly yet. And in my head, I'm battling, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I can't do this with my mum laying there, like not even like speaking, doing anything. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to her. She could die, and God knows, I didn't know the extent of anything. And I was thinking, my dad made me go to the gym and carry on training, which was over in Hackney. So we was going from South London, travelling to Hackney, I was like numb. And I'm still numb today from it all. But I was just sitting there, like just not wanting to be there, just staring out with a complete blank on me. I don't know what was going on with me. Get to the gym, and I was just there skipping. My body was doing things because I was getting told what to do, but I weren't there mentally or anything. I just battled through it, and I kept going back up to the hospital. I remember breaking down to my sister in like the kind of like family unit room and just saying, Nick, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight. I can't fight. My head's all over the place. Like, that's the last thing I can do. And she said, no, Charlie, you said, you got to keep your head in the game. You got to keep doing it. You promised your mum you're gonna carry on and not give up on your dream. Listen, and you made that promise, so do it. And then it was, weirdly enough, I think a week after of battling back and forth whether I was going to go or not and do it, the card name got announced, and Matchroom and Eddie Hearn named the card Unbreakable. And it was just like, it just felt like it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. It was just like a realization. I was just like, what?
We call those universe moments. When
universal.
You get this universe moment, and you're like, yes.
Yeah, it was like a universal moment.
That was meant to happen.
It was like, boom, hit me in the face. And I was just like, it just flipped a switch in my mind. I was like, unbreakable. I was like, well, no matter what, I can't be broken. I'm unbreakable. That's for a reason why that name. I don't know what it was. It was like a message from the universe, and then it switched on me, and I just changed to put in all my energy and emotion, heartache, numbness, I don't even know what it was, into my boxing, and I thought, this is the only way I can detach. And then I started going to the gym, and it would detach me from thinking, feeling, and I would just put all my energy into that. And then when I come out of the gym, I'd be back like emotionally drained, physically drained, back up the hospital, sitting around my things. So that was a very, very mad, crazy time, which is probably my lowest time up until that day, and then it got lower.
There'll be quite a few people listening to this, and there's an argument to be had about the way in which you coped with that. And I think we have different coping mechanisms at different points of our life that serve us in certain ways. And at the time, that was the perfect coping mechanism, was to numb yourself, to be able to drive yourself forward. But like you said, you still feel numb now. Do you feel like there's still some inner work for you to do in order to be able to release things, accept things?
Massively. I'm an overthinker. Okay. I'm always trying to better myself. I'm aware of past mistakes, crazy stuff I've done where I've...
Do you think you're trying to better yourself because you want to better yourself, or if it's because you want to be what your dad wants you to be? Just out of curiosity.
I at some stages through my life and my career, yes, I think my dad was that major driving force behind me wanting to better myself until I won the world title. When we stopped speaking, that when I was 22, I got away from him. We've had a big fallout. And then I went to fight for my first world title, which I then lost. I stopped speaking to him before because I wanted to do the boxing on my own. And it was crazy because I was a 22-year-old man, but I was like a 15-year-old kid because I didn't know the real world. I had to learn everything on the job. I had to keep working myself. And I'm one of them people who like, obviously we've all got a bit of ego. Everyone's got a bit of ego. We have to have that, especially to perform in the boxing world. But I'm very an inner thinker. I look at myself and think, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? How can you break these cycles to become a better person? And when I got away from my dad, I looked back from a different lens of the mistakes I made with my mum, not speaking to her, what happened to my mum, what my dad did good and what my dad maybe did bad, and how I didn't want to act like or be the man that he was in certain areas. And I looked at it from a different lens of like assessment and realised that a lot of our acts, behaviours and patterns come from being a child, like of not even realising. Like, it's like I kind of woke up, like I was just like, mum disabled, couldn't really have a proper conversation with her at all. Dad distanced myself from him, so I was like on my own. And I've been, like I said, I've been a very deep thinker. I've got my brother and my sister, but I've always been more in my own head, thinking about how to better myself, how not to be, how I want to be, what I want to create for my family or self in the future. So I've always been that kind of person who does look inwards and try and unpick himself. And getting away from my dad allowed me to grow as a man. And now I'm a 29-year-old man. I've achieved a lot that I've never thought I would. I've dreamt of when I was a kid and thought I could get, but I have got now, which is no wonder why. Ask, believe, receive, the law of attraction. But it's been a tough journey, and I've had to unpick certain things and try and break cycles and patterns where I made a lot of mistakes and I got heartache and pain through my journey.
For sure. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to create this podcast is I think there's so many people who look at people who have achieved great things and assume that they're just talented, or they've had a great life, or bad things haven't happened to them. But, looking at your Instagram, you look like a superhero, 114,000 followers. Every picture of you is looking like absolute, hero. What percentage of your life, this is a difficult question, but what percentage of your life do you think where you've actually felt true happiness?
I don't know, or I don't think anyone can put a single dot on true happiness. I think it's the journey, and it's through the bad days that you get through that you feel then good the next day, or the day you didn't wake up and didn't want to train and you train and then you feel good after. It's a constant battle, true happiness isn't gifted to you. True happiness isn't something that lands on your lap. It's something you've got to work on every single day. I think happiness is a hard thing to occupy forever, because there's good days, bad days, and everything in between. I think when you become aware of that, and where you become like, and don't say, "Oh, I'm unhappy," like, because I've suffered very, very bad, dark depression days, suicidal thoughts along the way, but they have been my worst days, and then I've had days where have been my best days. So I used to think that when I was younger that becoming a world champion would make me happy. Reality was, when I was world champion, I was the most unhappiest I have ever been. But the journey, looking back, was the real happiness. The passion, the drive, the progression of looking back at being that 11-year-old boy to then going through his whole career, achieving this, having dips along the way, feeling like shit at certain stages, but then battling through that adversity, coming back and then keep progressing. It's a journey. Our whole life is a journey, and happiness is always at the forefront of my mind, because I always say, especially in my boxing career, a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. And when I am happy, I perform to my best. When I'm not mentally there, or I allow things to interpret and affect me emotionally, physically, or whatnot in between, I can have dips. So happiness is something that I try to obtain every day. I don't think it's possible to have every day. I do feel like you have to have different stages of happiness, down, sadness, and that makes you appreciate when you are happy. But I used to think it was just achieving something. made me happy. Like my whole career, my whole life is to be this person, to be this world champion, to get there, and I've made it. And it's not. I think the happiest moment in my life was when my child was born. That made me realize what happiness is. And when I see her, when I walk her down to nursery in the morning and drop her off, and she does things and makes me smile, that's true happiness. And I think you only gain true happiness is when you are giving energy back to others, whether that's your family members, your children, whether you're helping some kid who you've took a liking to and you want to give them a bit of advice. I think that's what does bring happiness, is what you give out that you retain back. Money, you have all the things in the world, the amount of money, the constant getting a bigger house, getting a better car, but once you've got it, the happiness is there for that split second, but it's not everlasting, you know. So I think happiness is something you have to create a life and meaning to, which puts you in that happier side of life, and you can be happy in one area and sad in the other, so it's balance. I think
absolutely. Yeah, I can relate a lot, because I've always thought that if I can build a successful business, then I would be happy. And I built a successful business a long time ago, and I'm still not happy. And not to say that I'm unhappy, but it's not where true happiness comes from. Because like you say, it's an inner job that has to be done daily, and there's various elements to it. And some of it comes from the most simple things. And I think a lot of people relate to it, and I can definitely relate to that inner drive for more. And I think your dad has installed go harder, always try and go for more. And because there's never, an ending to that, there's this like, I'm always going to feel a bit unfulfilled or a bit incomplete or a little bit dissatisfied with myself because I haven't been able to achieve something which is never ending, so this never ending sort of journey that will never reach a destination. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I just wanted to say the sort of happiness percentage, not to get like an exact percentage, because of course that's impossible, but just to put it in perspective for the people that might call you lucky or call you talented, or by the looks of it, you've had maybe more downs than ups along your journey.
Most definitely. I think when you look through the outlet at the like lens of the world we live in now with social media, Instagram and stuff, like we do only post our good highlights, There's many days where I like come home and I'm in near enough tears and my head's completely gone and I can't see my life going anywhere because things aren't happening for me right now, even though I've achieved all what I have. And my wife has to be there and pick up the pieces and be the strong woman behind me when I fall off the horse, because we all do, And I feel like the pressures of social media nowadays, like, makes us all want to push all our feelings, emotions and unhappiness under a rug, because we're always constantly wanting to be better, improve on something, achieve the next thing, and not really live in the present moment. That's where that build-up comes so high up and the anxieties kick in, the more depression kicks in, because we're piling everything up and hiding away things and not like addressing things, healing from past traumas, healing from stuff that has happened to us, and understanding ourselves emotionally, because we're distracted with the phones. Like when anyone feels uncomfortable, what's the first thing they do? Pick up their phone and just look through and numb their brain and numb themselves out. So there's many areas where I'm still not happy in my life. Things aren't happening. Yes, I am where I am. I look great on social media, on my news feed and that, but my career ain't where I want it to be right now. I've been very inactive. I've been stuff like that. My family life is great. My little one's happy. My home's set up over here in Portugal. I fly back and forward to go to training camp, which I spend 4, 5, 6 weeks sometimes away from my family. So like, that's my very unhappy place. Although I need to be there to focus and dedicate myself to the sport and what I can achieve, I'm still unhappy in certain areas, even if I'm doing well in my career. So it's kind of like, it's a crazy But looking from the outside on social media, it looks great. It looks all fine and dandy. But I genuinely believe every successful person out there is suffering. We're human beings.
Yeah.
Like we're all like, you don't know half the stuff that goes on in your own head, what kind of environment stuff you've been involved in, what dramas, family stuff. Like, the world is forever spinning, and it's continually to go super fast, faster and faster every day, that people are looking on the outside and making themselves feel shit because they're having hardships, but they're looking on social media at someone else flying in life. It's crazy. And we theoretically are tricking ourselves to feel a certain way about our self-worth and making us feel like absolute shit because we're looking at this person, that person, that person. You don't know that last week their cousin didn't die, or their family member didn't die, just because they haven't pushed it out there, or they're not going through a divorce or a breakup, or their child's critically ill or been hit by a car or something. We don't see that. We just see goodness. And that's what I think why a lot of us are suffering with this imposter syndrome, this self-doubt, this feeling shit, because we're looking out. We're all looking out, and we're trapped in this thing of, I need to pressurize myself to get better. I can't give it a year or 2 or 3 years now. I need it right now. And when you need something right now, it makes you anxious because things aren't happening. Sometimes you've got to wait for things to happen, other people to do things, to get things built, to do this, do that, and it's out of your control. But because of social media, it's messed up a lot of us.
And I wanted to mention something about social media, because something I read was there was some controversial elements of some fake news being spread and some polarizing opinions and something that affected you quite deeply. Do you want to share something about that?
Yeah, so when I ended up becoming world champion, I defended it. I won it in 2019, just before Christmas. Then after I defended it for the first time in March, a very quick turnaround, I dropped a weight division to make the weight from super flyweight, which is only 8 stone 3, to 8 stone. But then 3 pounds is a massive thing when I'm coming down from like 9 stone 6. I'm losing like stupid amounts of weight. And then I went into my third world title fight, which was my second defense against my mandatory challenger, who was Julio Cesar Martinez, who was a very good fighter, big knockout ratio, who is my number 1 challenger in the world. And it's, as a champion, you have to fight your mandatory. So I went and fought him. I was beating him for the first 3 rounds. I've done a major, crazy weight cut for the fight. I had to lose 6 kilograms from the night before to the afternoon the next day where the weigh-in was. I'm not like big, it was just pure water weight, so I had to drain my water out of my body, and it put me in a very dark place. I shouldn't have probably been making that weight for as long as I did, but I had to. If I didn't, I wouldn't have been world champion. So I kind of took the health risk with wanting to achieve my dream, and then for that fight especially, it was just too much. I should have moved up, I should have vacated, I should have left the division, but my pride, my ego got the better of me, and I felt like I couldn't do that. I had to go out on my shield. I slept the night before the weigh-in for about an hour maximum in that night. My body would not allow me to sleep. It kept waking me up. I was that dry and dehydrated. I felt faint. I could have passed out. So I lost 3 kilos the night before the weigh-in. Tried to sleep, weren't happening. Woke up and I was still 2.5 kilograms in the morning before the weigh-in, and I had to sit in hot baths to drain all the water out. I was a fool, really. I shouldn't have done it. I really put my health on the line. My testosterone was down at the bottom, like it's to the point where when I was making them light weights, I couldn't even get a hard on. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking, what the fuck is wrong with me? Do you know what I mean? Without being rude or thingy on here, but it was like really head. I went to a fertility test and it said that my swimmers weren't swimming right, but just like gymnastics, when they make these light weights, their body don't function right. Your body's a magical being that needs to be healthy to be able to function, all your organs, hormones, everything like that. So my testosterone was very low, and then I made the weight, nearly passed out. I can't even really remember the weigh-in day. I was really, really bad. I should have been pulled out, but I chose to go through with a fight, rehydrated, thought I was fine. The next day I got in the fight, I was flying. I was winning the first 3 rounds, peppering him, picking him off, outboxing him, and then he caught me with a shot in the on the body, and it just took my liver or whatnot. It just took a lot out of me. I didn't know what kind of. I was like, wow, it was like the smallest of punch, but it took it out of me. Obviously, my body weren't reacting properly and was on self-defense mode. My organs was all over the place, and I took a barrage of punches. I took a knee because I thought, I need to get a breather. Like, something's not right. Took a knee to try and get an 8 count. In boxing, you get an 8 count. So once you take a knee, that's it. The ref starts counting. You have 8 seconds. By the time you stand up, speak to the ref, you've got about 15 to 20 seconds break to recuperate. And then as I went on the knee, about 5 seconds after I was on my knee, he whipped round the side and hit me while I was on the floor.
Is he going to make it? It could be disaster for Charlie Edwards here.
And it just took my whole life away. Like, my body was already fucked. I got a 10 count. The ref counted me out. I was like, couldn't believe it in the ring. I was like, what the fuck has just happened? Like, he hit me on the floor, like, and the ref deemed him as a winner. And then first time in boxing, they brought VR in and replayed it. And it was so late. It was ridiculous. The whole crowd in the arena booed, and the head chairman, Mauricio Solomon of the WBC, reversed the decision. He didn't get the win, and he made it a no contest. So it was very controversial. It brought a big uproar, a lot of eyes, a lot of media attention. What the fuck just happened, sort of thing. And I got given my belt back because I was a champion going in, because he fouled me. Should have really got disqualified, but it was ruled a no contest. They give me the belt back. I left the ring and I was still champion. Reality was, after that, I could not make the weight ever again. That was the last time I made the weight. And going into that fight, I had 3 weeks before the fight. In the WBC, we have check weights, what you have to adhere to throughout the camp to make sure you're making it safe, they say. But every check weight, you dehydrate yourself to make the check weight you put back on. So you trick the weighting system. So I didn't even make the last check weight. I had to cheat the check weight, like on the scales. The official come round one side, I lifted myself up on the other side to like lighten up the scales to make me pass. And that was still a kilo 0.5 over the weight I had to weigh in. So I then went back up and I had to lose it all, like I just told you. So in going into the fight, in the back of my mind, I was in that dark place of, I'm going to lose. I'm probably going to get knocked out. But it was like walking down death row. I was like, I can't pull out. I can't do this. Mate, the whole people around me are going to call me a shithouse, call me this, call me that. The pressure was on. Eddie Hearn, the big show, pay-per-view show, Lomachenko versus Luke Campbell. I was just under it, and it was just like the biggest payday of my career. Like, I was just like, so I was like walking death row to that fight. But then after the fight, like I said, the controversy took it away from me. The best thing that could have happened that night, and I've got to thank God and the universe for that, because same again, it was a crazy experience, but it was like he saved me, because had I gone 12 rounds and ended up taking some severe punishment, I could have had a bleed on the brain. I could have been very severely injured, because I was putting my health severely on the line, making that stupidly crazy lightweight and then fighting a killer on top of it. And it got taken away from me in controversy. And then I went away. I didn't make a decision straight away, but I knew I would never make that weight again. I weren't going to do it. I weren't going to put myself through it. Went away, spoke to my management and got some nutritional advice and like checks done, like blood tests and that, about my testosterone levels and thing. And it showed if you do that, you can nearly die. Do you know what I mean? So what happened was the best thing that night. But on the back of that, I waited 2-3 weeks to come to terms with it. And I put a video out. I had decided to move up a weight division. I had decided to vacate the title. And with that, a backlash of people calling me a fake champion, you're shit, you got battered, you should have been knocked out, blah, 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 not understanding nothing that I've been through. Like, just looking like, from the outside, we get paid a lot of money, you know, just like footballers. Like, people look at us like video game characters, like, they don't see us as real human beings who endow this tough journey to put entertainment on for people. So I got a lot of critic, very abuse, and reading it all, reading the comments, I got into that stupidness, really. I would never do it again if anything happened to me, but I was like reading everything, and that brainwashed me and deluded me into thinking like that about myself. And I went through a very deep, dark depression. I ran away from life, from everything. At the time, I was single. After that fight, I went to Turkey, got my teeth done, but didn't think about anything other than just sticking my fingers up at everyone. I got the whitest you could ever get, like Hollywood. So it was like from going from one extreme to the next, which made me even more anxious because I couldn't go anywhere without people like really proper like staring at me. It was like